Shabbat Shalom, it's your brother Kazakya, Priest Kazakya from MalachiMinistries.org. And before I begin this particular sharing I want to do today, we are in year 2014, and this is about the 8th month that I've been without a source of income. But through it all, the Most High has provided. I've had a place to live. I've had food and shelter, miraculously, while many have left me for dead and have demonized me and all of that. Yet still, the Father is still merciful and gracious and righteous, and I have made a decision to not turn my back on Him. I've never had it in my heart to even once try to think about turning my back on the Most High. So I have made a decision to continue in the faith. Praise Yahweh. I wanted to just kind of share that as an update to those of you who've been consistently checking on your brother and see what's going on with my life. Just want you to know that I'm healthy and well, energy-wise, strength-wise, and spiritually wise. The Father has enabled me to be maintained during these trying times. So I appreciate your prayers and supports, and everything the Father has allowed to happen has been ordained by Him, and I'm grateful. So having said that, I'm going to go ahead into a sharing I'm going to do. I woke up this Shabbat morning, and so those of you may hear a little bit of background noise. I don't have my microphone today, so I'm going to be using the microphone, the amplification from the built-in microphone on the camera itself. So prayerfully you can hear and understand what is being said. So having said that, beautiful day. I'm in this background here out in front of the lake. I love the water scene. The Most High always allowed me a spot where I can go and be in the water environment. So I appreciate that. And we're going to go ahead and get started. The particular teaching that I'm going to do is I woke up on this Shabbat morning, and the Most High put on my heart to do a discussion or lesson on the subject of love, hanging the law, I should say, on love. This particular message I'm doing is not a message that's targeted to Christian people or people that believe that we're not under the law, but this is more so of a lesson that is targeted to covenant-keeping Israelites who the first thing that comes out of our mouth to someone that is of another religious affiliation is, I don't eat pork, and I don't eat scavengers, and I keep the Sabbath. Okay? This particular lesson is targeted to the Hebrewists, or the people who are caught up in Hebrewism. Okay? Now, this is for you. And incidentally, if someone doesn't believe in keeping the commandments, you may feel like this is targeted to you. But this is specifically targeted to Hebrew Israelite, covenant-keeping Israelites, or whatever phraseology that we choose to call ourselves or to label ourselves with. This is for you. Matthew 22, verse 35. And it reads as follows. Then one of them, which was a lawyer, asked him a question, tempting him and saying. So now this was someone who was a lawyer who was tempting Yeshua the Messiah. Yeshua the Messiah had told had been traveling around, just to give you a little history, and proclaiming or preaching the humbleness of a people who were the bloodline DNA descendants, who knew they were Israelites, and they had this, a lot of them had this racial profile, racial prejudice against other people who were not the physical seed of Israel. And you'll see that if you follow some of in the book of Acts, you'll see that the Israelites had this racial prejudice thing against the other nations. So this is what was going on during the time the Messiah was. So one of the lawyers says, one of the lawyers or one of the scribes or the Pharisees, one of those who were the people who were zealous for what we call the Torah, were carrying this. And they approached the Messiah and asked the question. They said that they asked him a question tempting him and said, so they were looking to catch the Messiah in a lie or to catch him in deceit. So here's what happened here. So they asked him the question, Master, which is the great commandment in the law? Now they were looking for the Messiah to say something that had no reflection in the law. Okay, they were looking to catch him because, you know, the way the Messiah handled the law, he basically handled the law in the same way in which the Father, the Most High, had originally wanted the law to be handled. We're going to see this in this particular lesson. So we have those people who are zealous of the law, who have a tendency to highlight the Sabbath day, or have a tendency to highlight not eating pork, or highlight not eating scavengers, or highlight whatever the particular garments, whatever their particular modus operandi, whatever it is that they desire, that is their passion. That's what they highlight. So this is the same spirit that was happening back then. They wanted to highlight what their particular preference pertaining to Torah was. So that's why the question was asked, and we can see it here. We can see the language here. He said they desired to tempt him, saying, which is the great commandment? Okay, and now the Messiah basically did it this way. He answered this way. He said, Yahshua said unto him, thou shalt love Yah your Elohim with all your heart, and with all your soul, and with all your mind. So he said the first, and he said see, they asked him which was the great commandment, right? But rather than him saying which was the great, saying the one, he gave him two, which is basically one. So he said, thou shalt love Yah your Elohim with all your heart, and with all your soul, and with all your mind. You shall love Yah your Elohim, or Yahweh, your Elohim, with all your soul, with all your mind. He said, this is the first and great commandment. Now, there were more than two commandments. I just want to add that in there, but we're going to continue to read. And the second is likened to it. Thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. So now, interesting thing, I'm pointing out here, the Messiah didn't say one commandment, he said two. Okay? But the religious leader said, what is the great commandment? And the Messiah gave him two. So right there we can see that the Messiah was not talking about love is a new commandment. We're going to see this in a minute, okay? So he said that the second is likened to it, love your neighbor, okay? Then he said, on these two commandments, he says, these two commandments, okay? He says, on these two commandments hang all the law. Now, let me just pause for a second, because some people believe that you said the law is fulfilled, so and the Messiah said hang all the law and the prophets. But notice he didn't say just hang all the law, period. He said hang all the law and the prophets. See? He said hang all the law and the prophets on these two commandments, hang all the law and the prophets on these two commandments. Now, I want to reiterate that, because this is the whole punchline to this particular passage. He said hang all the law, and hang on these two commandments, hang all the law and the prophets. Now, he didn't say in the law, and he didn't say in the prophets, because some would say when he says hang the law, meaning that's it. Hang it. And he didn't say nail a nail in it and nail it to the tree. He said hang the law, and when you hang something, you to suspend something, you give it a support, right? So he said, in other words, let love be the support for loving, for the commandments, for the law, and the prophecies. Everything that the prophet spoke, he said, let love be the motivation. Let love be the support. Let love be the root to obedience, he said. Love should be the root, or the root, to obedience. Not for the righteous mindset to have a religious mindset because I keep the Shabbat and I keep the feast days and I don't eat the, what happened when the Messiah said this man went to pray and he said, I thank Yah that I'm not like these heathens here, I do this and I do that and I do that, right? Remember the story. That man wasn't justified, okay? But the man that came to the Father, this is love now. He said, have mercy on me. I am a sinner. So that's what the Messiah was dealing with, a spirit of religious-minded men who was glorified by what they think that they have accomplished. Now, on the flip side, you can't just say, well, we don't have to obey the Most High because of a religious mindset of person. And that's not what this is saying. It's not what the Messiah taught. That's not even what Shaul Paul taught. See, we're not going to deal with Shaul so much. We're going to deal with him in a minute, okay? So now, the Messiah, I want to deal with the two laws that he said. Hang all the law and the prophets on those two commandments. I want to deal with that. So first, let's go and let's deal with what the Father said about love. Because love, what we have to understand, when we hang in love, love is a support for the law. When you say you love, and I want to get ahead of myself, we ought to see some signs of obedience to what the Father said. Deuteronomy chapter 11, all right, verse 1. We're going to show you here that love was not first mentioned in the New Testament, okay? Love is not a new commandment, it's an old commandment. We're going to see this here. So we're talking about hanging all the commandments and the prophets, hanging all the law rather, and the prophets on love, okay? Verse 1, it says, therefore thou shalt love Yah, thy Elohim, and keep his charge. You see that? Love Yah, keeps charge, and his statutes, and his judgments, and his commandments always. See that? So now he didn't say, love him, love is the fulfillment, you don't have to do nothing. We're going to see that in a few minutes in another place where he's going to break it down. The apostle's going to break it down. But we see here where he says love is a fulfillment. He said love rather. He said keep his charge, his statutes, and his judgments, and his commandments always. Not till the Messiah comes in the physical flesh and is crucified, but love always, right? Okay, let's continue. And know ye this day, for I speak not with your children which have not known and which have not seen the chastisement of Yah, your Elohim, his greatness, his mighty hand, and his stretched out arm, and his miracles and his acts which he did in the midst of Egypt unto Pharaoh the king of Egypt and unto all his land, and what he did unto the army of Egypt, unto their horses and to their chariots, how he made water of the Red Sea to overflow them as they pursued after you, and how Yah hath destroyed them unto this day, and what he did unto all you in the wilderness until you came into this place, and what he did unto Dathan and Abiram, the sons of Eliab, the sons of Reuben, how the earth opened her mouth and swallowed them up, and their households and their tents, and all the substance that was in their possession in the midst of all Israel. But your eyes have seen all the great acts which Yah did. Right? Now, here's the part I want to read here. Hosea says, verse 8, therefore, he says, keep all the commandments which I command you this day, that you may be strong and go in to possess the land where you go to possess it. Right? And that you may prolong your days in the land which Yah swore unto your fathers, to give unto them to their seed, right? A land that flows with milk and honey. So now, I'm not going to read the whole chapter, So basically, we can see where the Most High was telling them to love Him and giving a description as far as to what that love is or what that love all entails. Okay? Let me just read just a little bit more in this chapter. Okay? Now, he says, let's start at verse 8 again. He says, therefore, shall you keep all the commandments which I command you this day, that you may be strong and go in and possess the land where you go to possess it, and that you may prolong your days in the land which Yah swore to your fathers to give unto them and to their seed, a land that flows with milk and honey. For the land whether you go in to possess it is not as the land of Egypt. Okay? From whence you came out, where you sowed, where thou sowed thy seed and watered it with thy foot as a garden of herbs. But the land whether you go to possess it, on a land of hills and valleys and drinking water of the rain of heaven, a land which Yah your Elohim careth for. The eyes of Yah thy Elohim are always upon it, talking about Israel, from the beginning of the year even unto the end of the year. See that? And it shall come to pass, if you shall hearken diligently unto my commandments, which I command you this day, to love Yah your Elohim, to serve Him with all your heart and with all your soul. So you see right there, verse 13, he says it again. So he's talking about love Yah with all your heart. How do you love the Most High with all your heart? He says it right here. You shall hearken diligently unto my commandments. You see that? So he said, if you hearken diligently unto my commandments, which I command you this day, to love Yah your Elohim, and to serve Him with all your heart and with all your soul. So we don't obey His commandments to show off and to be braggadocious to those who don't keep the law and say, y'all heathens. We are supposed to be an example. We are supposed to be living epistles, right? We are supposed to be examples to the world what it means to love. How would a woman know that a man loves her if he's not committed? So when a person says, a man tells a woman, I love you, but yet he's not dedicated, committed, or none of the above, but yet he does whatever he feels like doing, okay, is that love or is that lip service, right? Okay. So the Father said that's what he's talking about. Love. Hang all the law and the prophets on love the Father first. Okay? So if we're dedicated to the Father, we don't care who sees us keeping the Shabbat. We don't care who sees us not eating pork, not eating scavengers, not participating in pagan festivities. We don't care, because our love to the Father is our commitment. Okay? Same as in an earthly relationship. You don't care who sees you loving your spouse. As long as they know and they see the example of love, they see the passion of love, they see the demonstration of love. So you're hanging that law on love. If we love Him, then He's going to do something for us to enable us to know that He loves us back. This is what He says in verse 14. That I will give you the rain of your land in its due season, the first rain and the latter rain, that you may gather in your corn, wine, and oil. And I will send grass in your fields for the cattle, that you may eat and be full. Take heed to yourself that your heart be not deceived, and you turn aside and serve other mighty ones and worship them. You see that? So serving other mighty ones, basically, when you talk about serving, you're talking about who we obey. Messiah, I think, said, whoever you yield your members to, that's who you are obeying. I think that was the Messiah, Mashiach. It was either Sha'ul or Mashiach. You understand, you can look it up. Whoever I think it was Sha'ul said it, now I think about it. Whoever you yield your members to, that's whose service you are, to whom you are obeying. So he says that. Now, he says, verse 17, and Yah, he says, and then if you serve other mighty ones, right, those that you're serving, that you disregard him out of love for him, and you love them more than you love them, the world, more than you love him. You love not the world, so you obey the rituals and the holidays and the holy days of the world, but the days of the Father you don't obey because you say, well, we're not under that law. But yet we're under the laws of man. But yet we love man's laws so much that we obey man's law, but we don't obey the Father's laws. Okay? So now, he says, a verse, because of that, Yah's wrath will be kindled against you and shut up the heavens, and there be no rain, and that the land yield not her fruit, and lest you perish quickly off the good land which Yah give you. So we're impoverished because of disobedience. See, the reality of the matter is that the people that we call African Americans and Negroes are descendants of the Israelites, and that's the reason why we have struggle like no other people. Yes, poverty exists in every community and every ethnic group, but not like it exists amongst those of us who are the sons and daughters of the African slave trade, or commonly called the diaspora. Okay? Now, he says, verse 18, therefore you shall lay up these my words in your heart and in your soul, and bind them for a sign upon your hand, that you may be as frontlets between your eyes. Right? You shall teach them, your children, speaking of them when you sit in your house, and when you walk by the way, when you lie down, and when you rise up. Right? And you shall write them upon the doorposts of your house and upon thy gates. So that's for you. That's not for, see, love is a fulfillment. Love, we're supposed to hang all the law on love, is for us and for our Creator. It's not a showpiece for the world. It is for us to know our relationship between us and the Father. It has nothing to do with the world. We don't care about whether the world acknowledges that we keep in the commandments. It's about the Father. Can we see hanging the law on love is loving the Father. It's not for the people. Okay, we don't have to broadcast to them to let them know that we do this because we love the Father. If somebody asks me, I'll tell you I do it because I love the Father. It's just that simple. All right, now, verse 21. That your days may be multiplied, and the days of your children in the land which Yah swore unto your fathers to give them, as the days of heaven upon the earth. So this is what the Messiah said, right? This is what the Most High said. He said, we write these on the post of our hearts, so that, he says, that our days may be multiplied. If we go through the law, brothers and sisters, and we demonize, and we say, oh, we don't have to keep that law, it's nailed to the tree, we can eat whatever we want to eat, right? But when we look at the death rate of our people, and we look at the curses that fall down upon the children, right? We're going to read that in a minute. But see, people don't want to deal with that. You know, the scripture says that the fathers eat sour grapes, and our children's teeth are on the edge. We know what that's saying. If you think about it, what the Father does is push down to the children. Okay? And it comes up and it shows itself. So when you eat wrong, the Father loves you so much that He don't want to see you die from sugar diabetes, dying from heart attacks, high blood pressure, rheumatism, kidney disease, liver disease, cancer, all of that. He told us how to eat so that we can live. We're going to see that in a minute, all right? He said, if you do this, that your days may be multiplied, that you may be multiplied, rather, and the days of your children. You see that? He said, when you obey the commandments, you do this, right, so that your days may be multiplied and the days of your children. See, I just said that. So we got to see this for what it is. He said, so that your days and the days of your children. Why? Because the issue of blood is passed down from one generation to the next, right? He says, and your children in the land which Yah swore to give to your fathers to give to them, as the days of heaven upon the earth, right? Now, for if you shall diligently keep all these commandments which I command you to do them, to love Yah, your Elohim, to walk in all His ways, and to cleave unto Him. So What was the Messiah saying? Love Yah, your Elohim, with all your heart. When he was saying that, he was simply saying, keep his commandments. See that? He said, diligently keep all the commandments which I command you to do them. To love Yah, your Elohim, to walk in all his ways, and to cleave unto him. So cleaving unto him, we've heard that phrase before. When you get married, they say, shall a man leave his mother and father and shall cleave unto his wife? Well, the scripture there tells us that when you keep his commandments, you're cleaving to the Father, you see. You're loving him with all your heart because you're cleaving to him, you see. Hang all the law and the prophets on love Yah the Father first. We haven't got to the other part. We're dealing with loving the Father with all your heart, your might, and soul. So here we see that here. He says that you may walk in his ways, verse 22, and to cleave unto him. See? 23. Then will Yah drive out all these nations from before you, and you shall possess greater nations and mightier than yourselves. See that? So the reparations and the redemption for the so-called African Americans and blacks who were biblical Israelites is not going to come from man. It's going to come from the Father. You ever stop and pause and ask yourself the question, why everybody else got reparations but you and I? Because the Father said he's going to repay. All right? He's going to repay, and he said you will possess greater nations. Right? Now, this is not a racial thing. This is not a black and white, because your Israelite identity is not based on what your outside of your skin looks like. Okay? All right? That's another lesson. I don't want to get off into that. But this is not a black and white thing. It's a smoke screen. Okay? Israelites are known by, Deuteronomy 28 tells you, you're known by these signs. Right? The signs are not simply predicated upon, it never said they shall know, you should be known by the color of your skin. Okay? No, but you shall be known by these signs shall be upon thy seed. Right? I'm not going to go there because I want to get off on the subject. Okay, now. Verse 24, he says, every place where your soles of your feet shall tread shall be yours, from the wilderness and Lebanon, from the river Euphrates, even to the uttermost sea shall all your coasts be. There shall be no man able to stand before you. See that? Right now, men are standing before us, and they're incriminating and imprisoning us, and wrongful terminations and all kinds of things that they're doing to us. But here he says that no man shall be able to stand before you or against you, for Yah your Elohim shall lay the fear of you and the dread of you upon all the land that you shall tread upon, as he have said unto you. This was specific to the 12 tribes of Israel coming out of Egypt going into Israel, which is applicable to the descendants, which is a future prophecy. Hang all along the prophets on love. The prophet spoke that Israel would return back to the land with the Messiah. Okay, Messiah hasn't come, so Israel is still scattered into the lands of captivity. All right, now let's continue. He says, for Yah your Elohim shall lay fear of you and the dread of you upon all the land that you shall tread upon, as he hath said unto you. Behold, I set before you this day a blessing and a curse. Right? Blessing if you obey the commandments of Yah your Elohim, which I command you this day. So blessing if you obey the commandments. Right? Now, a curse if you will not obey the commandments. See? So, loving the Father, he's consistently reiterating what does it mean to love the Father. Love the Father by keeping his commandments. Okay, let's continue. A curse if you will not obey the commandments of Yah your Elohim, but turn aside out of the way which I command you this day, to go after other mighty ones, which you have not known. So we're going after all these pagan mighty deities that our fathers have not known. He said you're going to go after all these deities that your fathers have not known. Right? And it shall come to pass, when Yah your Elohim have brought you into the land where you go to possess it, that you shall put the blessings upon Mount Gerizim, and the curse upon Mount Ebal. And are they not on the other side of Jordan, by the way where the sun goes down, in the land of Canaanites, which was a campaign over against Gilgal, beside the plains of Moreh? For you shall pass over Jordan to go in to possess the land which Yah your Elohim give you, and you shall possess it and dwell therein, and you shall observe to do all the statutes and judgments which I set before you this day. That, in a nutshell, is loving Yah with all your heart. Now I'm going to just kind of reiterate on some things. It's not going to be as lengthy. I have a few more scriptures I'm going to share on loving Yah the Father. What does it mean to love Yah the Father with all your heart? Okay, he says, hang on love, or hang all the law and the prophets on love. Okay, he's explaining to us what does it mean to love the Father. Deuteronomy 6, right? We're going to read verse 4 and 5. Deuteronomy 6, verse 4. Hear, O Israel, Yah our Elohim is one Yah. And thou shalt love Yah your Elohim with all your heart, and with all your soul, and with all your might. He says, these are the words which I command you this day shall be in your heart. Verse 7. Let's just continue to read. It's pretty similar, the same thing. Verse 7. Diligently unto your children, and shall talk of them when you sit in your house, and when you walk by the way, and when you lie down, and when you rise up. You shall bind them for a sign upon the hand, and they shall be as frontlets between your eyes. So that's the reason why we spend time rehearsing the law of the Father in our houses. Not religion. We're supposed to rehearse the law, because the law tells us how to be successful, how to live, right? Let's skip down to verse 17. Let's start at verse 12. Verse 12, 6 and 12. Then beware lest thou forget Yah, which brought you forth out of the land of Egypt, and from the house of bondage. Thou shalt fear Yah your Elohim, and serve him, and shall swear by his name. You shall not go after the other mighty ones, and the other mighty ones of the people which are round about you. For Yah your Elohim is a jealous Elohim among you, lest the anger of Yah your Elohim be kindled against you, and destroy you from off the face of the earth. He says, you shall not tempt Yah your Elohim as you tempted him in Massah. Okay? You shall diligently keep the commandments of Yah your Elohim, and his testimonies, and his statutes, which he have commanded thee. All right? Now, listen to this next verse, verse 18. We're talking about how to love the Father. We're hanging the law on love, right? This is between you and the Father. You don't have to prove nothing to no one. This is between you and the Father. Prove your love to the Father, not to man, right? Let's continue, okay? Now, and thou shalt do that which is right and good in the sight of Yah, that it may be well with you, and that you may go possess the good land which Yah swore unto your fathers, to cast out all the enemies from before you. Yah has spoken. See that? Now, that's what the Most High is saying. Skip down to verse 24. We're in chapter 6, verse 24, and he says, Yah commanded us to do all these statutes, to fear Yah, our Elohim, for our good always, that he might preserve us alive as it is at this day. And it shall be our righteousness if we observe to do all these commandments before Yah, our Elohim, as he have commanded us. Now, somebody says, brother, all of our righteousness are filthy rags. Now, this is what the Most High said. I didn't say it. He said, verse 25 again, and it shall be our righteousness if we observe to do all these commandments. So how is your righteousness in the eyes not of man? We're not concerned about man, we're concerned about the Father. What is the indicator of what your righteousness is, right? When you obey his commandments. That's how he calculates things. Man looks at the outward appearance, but the Father looks at the heart. Right? He knows, are you obeying him because of love, or are you obeying him because you want recognition from man to say, oh, he one of them Sabbath day keepers? You know, we got to get out of this mode of people and get into the mode of relationship, and we do this because we love the Father. Deuteronomy 10 and 12. And now Israel, what does Yah, and now Israel, what does Yah, your Elohim, require of thee, but to fear Yah, your Elohim, to walk in all his ways, and to love him, right? And to serve him. Yah, your Elohim, with all your heart, with all your soul. Verse 13, to keep the commandments of Yah and his statutes, which I command thee this day for thy good. Okay? Now, so the Most High is repetitiously telling Israel and those who are covenant sons and daughters of Israel, because you can't be a follower of the Mashiach if you're not a covenant son and daughter of Israel who came through Abraham, Isaac, and Yaakov, whose name was changed to Israel. Now let's go over and look to see what the Messiah, the Mashiach, had to say about the commandments. Let's go to John chapter 14. We can go to stop at John chapter 14 first, and we're going to go to John chapter 15. So let's go to Yachanan chapter 14, or John, okay, chapter 14, verse 15. John chapter 14, verse 15. Because somebody said, brother, everything you're reading is in the Old Testament. It's all nailed to the tree. Okay, I'm glad you said it, because the second half of this particular lesson is going to be for you. All right, John, Yachanan chapter 14, verse 15, and it reads as follows. If you love me, keep my commandments. This is the Messiah speaking now. This is not Old Testament. He said, if you love me, keep my commandments. Love, hang all the law and the prophets on love. This is what the Messiah said. Now he comes back and says, if you love me, keep my commandments. Notice he didn't tell them in Matthew 22 that, oh, in the law with love, but he said, hang the law and the prophets on love. It's a difference between the two. And say in the law with love, the law ended with love. We're going to deal with that in a minute. But he said, hang all the law and the prophets on love, the Father, with all your heart. We're there. We haven't got to your neighbor. We're at the Father, right? We're going to finish dealing with this, and we're going to go and deal with the neighbor. Okay, now, so he said, love me, keep my commandments, and I will pray to the Father, and he shall give you another comforter, that he may abide with you forever. See that? So the Messiah said, if you love me, keep my commandments. Now let's go to the 15th chapter of Yachanan chapter 15, very next chapter. We're going to read verse 10. He says it again. If you keep my commandments, you shall abide in my love. Let me read that again. If you keep my commandments, he says, you shall abide in my love. If you keep, not break, not say the nail to the tree, if you keep my commandments, you shall abide in my love. See that? If you keep my commandments, you shall abide in my love, even as I have kept my Father's commandments and abide in his love. You see that? So he's saying, if you keep the Father's commandments, you keep his commandments, you are abiding in love. Now, the Messiah didn't have his own commandments. He followed. He didn't come to do his own will. He came to do the will of the Father. So everything that the Father said and spoke, the Messiah did. Why? Because the Father spoke it. All right, now let's go to Exodus chapter 20, right? Exodus chapter 20, because the Messiah told us, if you love me, keep my commandments. Now, Exodus 20, we're going to read verse 6, right? And this is what the Messiah said. Exodus 20, verse 6, he says, let's start at verse 5. Exodus 20, verse 5 and verse 6, and it reads as follows. Thou shalt not bow down thyself to them, nor serve them, for I, Yah, your Elohim, am a jealous Elohim, visiting the iniquities of the fathers unto the children, unto the third and the fourth generation of them that hate me. and showing mercy unto thousands of them that love me and keep my commandments. You see that? So he shows mercy. See, the Father don't want us to die of sickness, you see. He wants us to die of a good old age. There are many people that died of a good old age. They just went to sleep, right? That the Father wants us to die of a good old age, to sleep with our fathers, right? To not be sick and he took sick and he had cancer or had diabetes or whatever and he died. No, the Father wants us to live a good old age, right? Because he said that he would visit the iniquities. So when we disobey his law, which he gave to us, that we are supposed to hang because he loved life and he wants us to live. So he said, I'm giving you the instructions of how you can live. So if you want to live, don't, people say, well, I don't eat much of it. I just eat a little bit. The Father said, don't touch it. Not have a little. What does Shaul say about a little? A little leaven the whole lump. It don't take a lot, just a little bit can be passed through that DNA. So if you love the Father, if you love yourself, and if you love your children, you will obey the Father so that you will live, brothers and sisters. That's all he's saying. Hang all the law and the commandments on love, because the love of the Father is so great that he wants you to maximize your life on the earth. So he wants you to live and not die, okay? Leviticus 26, verse 3, it says, and your threshing, Leviticus 26, verse 3. Let's start at verse 2. You shall keep my Sabbaths and reverence my sanctuary. I am Yah. If you walk in my statutes, he says, and keep my commandments and do them, see, then I will give you rain in due season, and the land shall yield her increase, and the trees of the field shall yield their fruit. So that's what the Father said, brothers and sisters. Hang all the law on love and the prophet, because the Most High wants to bless us. But we keep saying we don't have to obey that, then we don't get the blessings, we get the curse. And you can see it's prevalent in our society. We're living under a curse, bro, as much as we like to believe, because we got nice cars and nice houses. But we're living in a curse. We're living in a cursed world, because the world is telling you not to obey the Father. They're going to pass laws before long where the things that the Bible stands for, obeying the law, they're going to incriminate you, lock you, put you in prison for standing for the law.